But now we've got time for question and answer. And Justin Moss from Siemens in the UK is going to chair that discussion. I believe he's got a number of questions in the chat, and he'll start with those. And then if we have time, we can ask other questions. There is a little button on your screen called Reactions. And if you want to ask a question, you can pop up a little hand or something, and it should be possible for Justin to see that you're asking a question. But I think, Justin, you're going to start with questions from the chat. Thanks very much.
Thank you to all the speakers as well. I think some of the questions have been answered on the actual Zoom chat group anyway, but obviously if there's anyone that wants to actively ask a question now, say, put a thumbs up on the reactions. But I think some of the questions that people are asking for the first three speakers was around where does diesel sit in the graphs, what's the benefits and what's been accrued? And I think that question has been answered, but Julius, do you want to just touch on that quickly?
Yes, maybe I can be a bit more precise on that. I didn't cover it because of time in my presentation. We considered both diesel hybrid vehicles and pure battery vehicles, and in the model it's decided according to the total cost of ownership which technology is chosen. So in the numbers you saw, if it's not explicitly stated that it's hybrid or pure electric, then it's a market-based mix of both.
Thank you very much. And then some of the questions have been about integration of the system, how it's reliable, maintenance, etc. I think some of those have been answered, but I think a lot of those will be picked up in the conversations over the next after the break around sort of operational, etc. So the next one was all around end-to-end journeys as well, and I think hopefully they've been answered. But do one of the three of you want to just pick that up as well?
So I think the question was what do the end-to-end journeys look like with freight being transported on vehicles via the eHighway from one end to the other?
I can maybe also tell something regarding our model about this. We considered individual transport relations in Germany, so origin, destination, and we did a routing for this, and as a result we got the share, a certain share on the electrified network, and pre and post haul. And this is, of course, decisive for the economic performance in the end, because the main haul gives the economic advantage essentially for the catenary technology. If the network expands, then of course more relations will become suitable in terms of this pre and main haul relation for the costs.
Thank you. One of the questions for you as well was the source of the hydrogen. I think someone asked about whether it was green, brown or blue, or if anyone had been considered on that one.
Yes, I think I already answered it in the chat. We consider green hydrogen because we see really a huge bunch of uncertainties regarding blue and other shades of hydrogen, and there is from a environmental sustainability perspective, there is strong evidence that it's really questionable in terms of life cycle GHG emissions. To consider other shades of hydrogen as carbon neutral. That's
fine. And I suppose it adds back to that sort of speed. I think we should talk about road and rail and whether we can electrify the railways as quickly. But I suppose the infrastructure for hydrogen actually isn't there at the moment either, is it? So at least this solution, you've got electricity already there. I think there were some questions on the cost of the vehicles as well for Scania. I think that's also got to be considered on the sort of whole life costs of the vehicles, because I think obviously initially the costs would be more as people take them up, they would reduce in costs. But have you got some answers about that as well?
Well, Christiana, Scania, everything about the cost for customers is very difficult to share because it's commercial and marketing stuff.
Yeah.
But still, we have given some information to Julius and his colleagues during calculations, so they have used realistic numbers. But I don't want to share any number in this chat.
I suppose just wrapping up, because we've only got a couple of minutes left, there was talks around the flexibility for multiple users, because obviously if there is multiple different types of hybrid vehicles, I don't think we're suggesting here that the trucks are 100% electrified and only using the actual cantilevers. So it is purely looking at sort of hybrids and how you can do it. And obviously the more on the roads there are, the smaller the batteries, which I think is the sell, isn't it? So it's rather than having a very weighty battery solution, it's being able to trickle charge your vehicles as you go along. And other than that, has anyone got any other questions that they don't feel were answered on the chat? What we will probably do as well is just lift those questions off, and when we circulate the slides, just make sure they're answered as well.
Yes, could I ask a question about the demonstration project, please? It's John Miles.
Hi, John.
Hi. Yeah, I'm really interested in the demonstration projects that are being run here, really impressed by what's been achieved. I just wondered if you could help us understand how it was that you managed to arrange the projects and get the partners to participate. So, for example, I think there are 5 trucks in each of the 3 demonstrations, and the trucks are being operated by operators, by freight operators. Do those freight operators have to purchase the trucks within the program, or are they given the trucks to use and the trucks are funded by the program?
Yeah, I can answer that, Christer from Scania. Usually when we develop a new truck, we first run them in a field test operation at the real customer, so we get the feedback from the customer before we actually sell them. In that case, we own the truck and the operator rent them for a reduced cost. Because the uptime is not as good as it should, the purpose is for them to find problems so that we can fix before we actually sell them commercially. And we use a very similar operation in this case. We rent the trucks to the customers for a reduced rate as the prototypes and the uptime is not really according to Scania, even though it's quite good. Yeah, so that's the customer rent the truck and they own the Scania.
That's very helpful, thank you. And if I may, just a similar question about the infrastructure side. I think it was 13 million euros for the infrastructure. And how was that funded in the demonstration? Was that entirely funded by the state, or was that paid for by someone else, by private industry?
No, it was entirely funded by the Federal Ministry of what is it? By environmental and or what is the name? The environmental affairs. The Ministry, Federal Ministry of Environmental. Yeah, affairs. I don't know what's really the exact name in English, but
that's fine. You've certainly answered my question. Thank you.
Yeah,
and certainly for this, just to support and add to that, I think what's being looked at here is looking at DFT to fund the initial trials. Obviously, there's other competing trials along the same time, but obviously we feel that this one's got the biggest legs to be able to maximise that solution quickly. I think there was one other question as well from Mr. Wilkinson around the challenges of scaling up the system to 13,000 HGVs on daily network.
Yeah, I would say that's just a matter of building the factory. So when the market or demand increases, we will increase delivery, of course, because we want to sell trucks. So it's just a matter of time here, how quick we can increase it. But I mean, today we deliver up to 100,000 trucks, so I think Scania is ready for it.
Fabulous. And
Justin, one question from me, just a practical question on how these things work when they're on the road. The catenary line obviously covers one lane of the highway, but trucks have to move between different lanes, overtaking slower vehicles and all that kind of thing. Do they then go onto their hybrid system, or can they use other lanes and still connect via the pantograph?
No, they can't. They transfer to the hybrid system, so they usually use the battery for a short time before they can return. You have to disconnect from the catenary when you leave the lane. I think there will be some more information after the break also around this.
Yeah, we'll see some pictures of that. I think some video of that. But I think what happens is the driver indicates to leave the lane to pass. The pantograph comes down by itself. The driver does the passing maneuver on the battery, goes back into the lane, and then pushes the button, and the pantograph goes back up again. So
yeah, correct.
Seamless.
So has there been any study on how much sort of loss of the potential to have green energy there is when you know the amount of overtaking that has to be done? Because as any of us know, when we're driving along, there's constantly at busy times trucks in both lanes.
I think that the trucks can travel 30 kilometers, 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers on their batteries. So it's not a problem for them to be able to overtake.
Yeah, and also remember that we recharge the battery when we are on the catenary. So whatever you use during overtaking, we can put back in the truck afterwards. So the energy consumption will be the same, all electric.
Well, effectively, what you're getting to with the cantilevers being there, it's the opportunity to charge your vehicle as you're moving along, isn't it? Rather than sitting at a station or somewhere else and charging it that way. So
yeah, that's right.
You know, there will need to be a change in modal shift as far as how people drive to maintain that and to use that charge. So hopefully that answers your questions. And I think on that one, we'll wrap it up as well, because I'm just conscious of time to give everyone time for a comfort break before the next session.